The year 1066 did not begin with a battle, but with a warning written in fire. Halley's Comet dragged its tail across the night sky, a hairy star that the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle described as a harbinger of doom. For the people of England, the dread was justified. King Edward the Confessor, the pious and childless ruler of a fractured kingdom, lay dying in his chamber at Westminster. His death on the 5th of January shattered the fragile peace of the island. He left behind no son to take his place, only a whisper of a promise and a vacuum of power that would pull three of the most dangerous men in Europe into a collision course. The English Witan, the Council of Wise Men, wasted no time. They crowned Harold Godwinson, the Earl of Wessex. He was the richest, most powerful man in England and a soldier of proven grit. But across the cold, gray waters of the English Channel, Duke William of Normandy looked north with a cold fury. He claimed that years earlier, Edward had promised him the crown, and that Harold himself had sworn a sacred oath to support him. To William, this wasn't just politics, it was a theft of his birthright. He began to fell the forests of Normandy, building an armada of invasion ships. But he wasn't the only predator circling the wounded kingdom. To the north, a legend was sharpening his axe. Harold Hardrada, the king of Norway, was a giant of a man, a warrior who had fought from the frozen fjords of Scandinavia to the golden palaces of Constantinople. He was known as the Thunderbolt of the North, and he believed England belonged to the Vikings by ancient right. While William stared at the channel, cursing the unfavorable winds that kept his fleet trapped in port, Hardrada struck first. In September, 300 Viking longships sliced through the mist of the Humber estuary. They descended upon York like a wolf on the fold, crushing the northern earls at the Battle of Fulford. King Harold Godwinson, still in London preparing for the Norman threat, faced a nightmare scenario. He had to make a choice that would break a lesser man. He abandoned the southern coast, gathered his housecarls, his elite professional soldiers, and marched north. This was no ordinary march. They covered nearly 200 miles in just 4 days, moving with a speed that defied the limits of medieval logistics. They arrived at Stamford Bridge on the 25th of September, catching the Vikings completely off guard, basking in the sun without their armor. What followed was a massacre, but it was bought with heroism. Legend tells of a single giant Viking berserker who held the narrow bridge alone, felling 40 Englishmen with his Dane axe until a soldier floated beneath the bridge in a barrel and speared him from below. Once the bridge fell, the English surged across. The fighting was so ferocious that of the 300 ships that brought the Vikings to England, only 24 were needed to carry the survivors home. Hardrada was dead. The Viking age in England was over. Harold had achieved the impossible. He had saved his kingdom. But history is cruel to the exhausted. Just days after the victory, while the English were tending to their wounds and burying their dead, the winds in the English Channel finally shifted. The weather that had trapped William in France turned in his favor. The Norman fleet, carrying thousands of horses, archers, and knights, set sail under the cover of darkness. They landed at Pevensey on the 28th of September, unopposed. When the news reached Harold in York, he didn't weep. He simply summoned his battered army, turned them around, and began the long, agonizing march back south. Harold arrived in Sussex to find a wasteland. William was not just waiting, he was provoking. The Normans were burning the local villages, Harold's own personal estates, forcing the king to engage before he was fully ready. On the 14th of October, the two armies met 7 miles from Hastings at a place marked by an old gray apple tree on Senlac Hill. The geography was Harold's only advantage. He packed his men onto the ridge, shoulder to shoulder, forming the famous shield wall. This was a forest of lindenwood and iron, a human fortress designed to break the charge of any horse. Below them stood the Norman war machine, a thoroughly modern army of combined arms, archers to thin the ranks, heavy infantry to grind them down, and the aristocratic cavalry to deliver the killing blow. As the battle began at 9 in the morning, the air filled with the buzzing of crossbow bolts and arrows, but the English had the high ground. The projectiles bounced harmlessly off the shield wall or flew over the heads of the soldiers. William ordered his infantry up the slope, but they were met with a rain of throwing axes and stones. The English line held firm, a solid wall of no. By midday, the battle was turning into a disaster for the invaders. The Norman left flank, made of Breton allies, panicked under the assault and broke. Seeing the retreat, parts of the English line, furdmen who were likely undisciplined militia, broke ranks to chase them down the hill. It was chaos. In the confusion, a horse went down, and a cry went up that the Duke was dead. The Norman army began to crumble. This was the moment where the conquest should have ended, but William was not a man to let destiny slip away. He tore off his helmet, riding dangerously close to the front lines, his face red with exertion and rage. He roared for his men to look at him, proving he was alive and ready to conquer. His visibility electrified his army with new courage. They turned on the English soldiers who had foolishly left the hill, cutting them off and slaughtering them in the valley. Seeing the success of this accidental maneuver, William displayed the cold tactical genius that earned him his reputation. He ordered his men to do it again, on purpose. The Normans feigned retreat, pretending to flee in terror. The English, sensing victory and desperate to end the hours of grinding physical trauma, took the bait. They charged down the hill, breaking the integrity of their shield wall. Once the English were on open ground, they were easy prey. The Norman knights wheeled their horses around, crashing into the scattered infantry. The shield wall, once a single impenetrable organism, was now fractured into isolated groups of men fighting for their lives. The housecarls, Harold's elite guard, gathered around his king and his dragon banner, swinging their massive two-handed axes that could cleave a horse and rider in a single blow. But they were dying, one by one. As the sun began to set, casting long, bloody shadows across the field, William played his final card. He ordered his archers to change their aim. Instead of firing directly at the shields, they angled their bows high into the sky. The arrows didn't fly at the English, they fell on them, a deadly rain plunging vertically behind the shield wall. The English were forced to look up to dodge the death from above, leaving them exposed to the swords from below. It was in this twilight of the gods that the end came. According to the tapestry and the legends that followed, a falling arrow struck King Harold Godwinson in the eye. The wound blinded the commander, the heart of the English resistance. As he writhed in pain, Norman kites broke through the final circle and hacked him down. With the king dead, the English army evaporated into the forest. The field was silent, save for the groans of the dying. The flower of English nobility lay dead in the mud. William had won. He marched to London, not as a liberator, but as a master. On Christmas Day 1066, in Westminster Abbey, he was crowned. But when the congregation shouted their acclaim, the nervous Norman guards outside thought a riot had started and began burning the surrounding houses. William was crowned amidst smoke, fear, and trembling, a fitting beginning to a reign born in blood. The Battle of Hastings did more than change a king, it changed a civilization. The old Anglo-Saxon aristocracy was all but wiped out, replaced by a new French-speaking elite. They built stone castles in every shire to lock down the land, forever changing the English landscape. They changed the language, blending Germanic grunt with French elegance to create the English we speak today. The bloody arrow that struck Harold didn't just kill a man, it killed an era. But from that death, a new, complex, and powerful nation was born. England was conquered, yes, but in that conquest, it was also transformed.